So I got involved in organizing because I had always done community work and volunteer work in school, but I had never considered that it was a job opportunity. So I went and I studied public relations and advertising at Emerson College. And whenever we had a project, it would always be socially based, but it never really occurred to me that that was something that I had subconsciously really enjoyed. And I took this course called Social Liberal Movements, where I learned about the unions movement in the US. And at the same time, I'd walk into my PR class where we'd have case studies about a factory just burning and killing two people. What are you going to tell the media? And I always imagined myself to be on the side of the people picketing for safer regulations, better safety regulations, rather than being writing a media and trying to justify why two people had lost their lives at this factory. But when I moved back to Jordan, I got very much drawn into the world of PR and to the point that I eventually opened my own PR agency. And the whole time I used to tell them, we can only do PR for NGO work. There has to be a better way that we can use PR for good reasons rather than to promote corporations. But eventually I realized that even NGOs work as a corporation with the intention of doing good rather than selling a product. And that just didn't seem to settle well with me. So, for example, I'd always feel like the director was always afraid of the board rather than afraid of the constituency or the people she was helping. And that contradiction really irritated me. So I went and I studied political sociology in the hope that I could study how the world works or how society works so I can figure out where I can fix it. When I came back to Jordan, I decided to leave my PR job and I found a position as a programs officer at the Columbia Middle East Research Center, where I had met the research manager at the time, and her name was Nasreen. And I had just started launching a project called Ta'lila in Jordan at the same time, where I had people from across the country from all backgrounds come to a safe space. We'd bring around 8 to 10 people. Each person would have 8 minutes to share an idea, interest, observation, or experience. And this project was called Ta'lila. So Nasreen had known about my initiative. So she told me that that she's going to be teaching this online course on something called organizing, and my project would be a great project for me to submit into. And then the more she explained to me about the course and I started preparing my application, I realized that Ta'lila wasn't quite at the level of an organizing project that I had wanted. But instead, at the same time in Jordan, teachers were demanding a union, and the government was against them for multiple reasons. And I felt the government was also disrespecting them for multiple reasons. And I was witnessing the power of these teachers organizing, building power in their communities, teaching their students about civic engagement and how to demand their rights from their government. And at the same time, I would hear that the local community wasn't supporting the teachers in their campaign, that they would rather support the government's claims that the teachers just want more money, that the teachers are going to politicize the union, etc. So when I applied for this course, I decided to apply to get the communities to build power, to help them build the teachers' power by supporting them in their campaign. And that was how I started. I started to understand and get to know and practice what community organizing is. So what was interesting about this course in general, I think, was the fact that the pedagogy itself is based on practice and learning and this concept of getting on the bike and actually practicing. And in a global or an online learning course, how do you achieve that? And what I found particularly interesting is that by having this emphasis and this organizing mindset, I ended up entering a world, like a course that was more about, was it that just wasn't about taking theory and taking knowledge. It was structured in a very specific way that you had to build a relationship with your teaching fellow, and you felt like you were part of this big online community, and you were all learning from one another. But the main moment I remember was when I got coached by Professor Marshall on my story, and he asked me about my sister and why wasn't she an organizer like me? And I remember just pausing there for a minute, and he challenged me and made me realize something that I didn't see before. That I feel like if it was like if I was in a classroom, maybe I would be too shy to come up. But because my teaching fellow had asked me to come and speak, like that kind of gave me the courage and the responsibility to step up. And at the same time, I felt that I got a moment with the professor in front of the class that was a learning moment for me and a learning moment for everyone in there. That I felt that maybe in an on-ground course, it just wouldn't have worked in the same way. The main difference I found about online learning and on-ground learning is in the online world, we actually were able to create an a global community. We had people from around the world for 14 weeks talking about similar issues of social justice, similar challenges of power and inequality, similar discussions on cultural challenges within the organizing framework. So it's just really amazing to see what a global concept and framework that this course really is and how common the challenges are. It doesn't matter if you're from a first world or third world country. Power is power, and the way you have to assess it is extremely strategic. And the way you build relationships, you will find that is extremely similar. Um, so it's a really great learning environment where for 14 weeks you have people from around the world learning from one another and as well as teaching one another. Because one of the things that really drew me to this course is also the coaching spirit of the teaching fellows and the teaching team. They really push you to draw from your own experiences, but at the same time, to challenge yourself and to challenge others, as well as to share your experiences with other people. So maybe just because you're from a different context doesn't mean that your experience is any different. So when I initially took the course, I had taken it in the approach that I'm just going to take this really great learning experience and apply it. It never really, I never thought that this was an opportunity for me to launch a career or enter a world of organizing. So ever since I took the course, my teaching fellow happened to be in Jordan, which is also great because the course isn't just based in a hub in the States. And she started recruiting me. She initially recruited me to be part of a learning circle here in Jordan. So people who had taken the organizing course or had taken an on-ground workshop of the course, we would come together and we talk about what we had learned and our understanding of the concepts and theories of the framework. And eventually, my teaching fellow Nasreen launched a company called Ahel. And through Ahel, I was able to become an organizer and a facilitator and a coach for various campaigns in Jordan. And at the same time, I really stood out in the online course, and I was recommended to be a teaching fellow the following year. So I got to be an online teaching fellow for the very same course that I fell in love with in 2010 and became a teaching fellow in 2011 and again in 2012. So this course it was transformational for me as an individual in understanding how to make change. And it was also transformational in terms of my career.